All right, Music You Can See winner, NAMM. Gosh, you just never know the greats that you run into. The closest I've ever been to B.B. King is this gentleman here.
Come on.
This is Joey Delgado. Your tone is just incredible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
What's the secret to your tone? What
well, I think I mean I don't know it's a secret, but I grew up in the '60s with my big brother Bob Delgado, the bass player in our band. And when we were coming up as young musicians, he would make me listen to these guitarists that, thank God, my associates or my counterparts in elementary school were listening to the Monkees and these other these other bands. And anyway, meanwhile, I'm 11 years old. I'm listening to Freddie King, Albert King, B.B. King, and Peter Green, and Otis Rush, and all these things, I just couldn't associate with the friends at school. They didn't get it. And I didn't get what they were listening to. And besides, my brother Bob wouldn't even allow it to come into the house. If I said, hey, how about this band Yes or something like that, he didn't dig it.
No Cannibal and the Headhunters, no Midnighters.
Well, no, that's not true. We were raised on those guys.
Right, absolutely.
So they were back in the 60s. Everybody had a band, and my brothers were part of the East LA rock and roll scene.
Absolutely.
The Exotics, the Ambertones. And then my brother Bob's band, the Exotics, morphed into this band called Hiram Josh, and they were like the first psychedelic rock band out of East LA. I think so, because they were heavily influenced by the British blues invasion.
Oh, absolutely.
So and then from that point, then they learned about the origins of the music with
which is what you were influenced by, the Kings.
So then I had firsthand experience with guitar players like Danny Diaz. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Bob Robles, and my older brother Jimmy, and they were playing right there in the living room. So I knew what that tone sounded like, and so that's what I try to emulate. Because I know what I want to hear. When I go see a guitarist, I know what I want in my head. And same thing with the music that we write. When we write music that we would enjoy. And then also the concept of an entire album, from front to back.
Look at it as a whole.
Yeah, it's a work. It's a and so that's what we think about. And I'm so blessed that I had that school of hard knocks. My brother Bob he'd make me sit down and listen to Peter Green on the LP, because we didn't have cassette decks back then. And so you pick up the needle and you go da 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 da. Oh yeah, dude. I couldn't do that. I was like, I knew that made sense. Or if you sped it up, you could hear the bass pattern. Yeah. So anyway.
But Bob was probably running around up to Griffith Park and actually seen Peter Green play live with
Bob. If you talk to my brother Bob, I swear to God, he's seen everybody. Here's a quick funny story. My brother Bob and Danny go to the Whiskey Go-Go in Hollywood. My brother Danny has an actual reel-to-reel deck in his hands. He pays his admission. They let him in. He sits at a cocktail table, plugs it in, records Cream, first U.S. Right. So, but they go home on Sunday, listen to the recording, and return the deck to their friend with the tape. So it happened. But rumor has, urban legend, there's a bootleg,
out there somewhere.
and my brother Danny did that. But anyway, but that's just one of the things. Another time, my brother Bob goes, there's this guy playing at the Roxy. You got to go check him out. His name's Bob Marley. I said, well, okay, Bob Marley. I think I know the song he did with Eric Clapton. I shot the. So I'm thinking I'm going to see like a Buffy, what's the name? I got Hawaiian guys with shirts on. I don't know what to expect, right? And I pay my $5 to get in, and the only seat left open was on the balcony of the Roxy, right? So I'm sitting, the curtain comes up, the smoke goes up, and Bob might get up, stand up. Oh my God, unbelievable! And I had no idea. And that night was actually recorded and released a couple years ago live at the Roxy. And you could hear me in the background.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the place on Sunset that has the two monitors going both like this?
That was the Billboard
screen?
Live.
Billboard Live, right?
Yeah.
So I get a call from a friend of mine. She's like, what are you doing tonight? And I said, if you're calling, hanging out with you, right? So she goes, okay, show up. No matter who's playing, show up at midnight. go to will call, ask for a ticket. I said, okay. So I come up there 10 till midnight and everything, and the guy comes out and he says, I'm sorry, folks, this act is canceled for tonight. It's not going to happen. Sorry, we'll refund your money. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go over to will call. I go to him, do you have a ticket for Phil Yates? They're like, yeah. I go inside. It's a room of like 50 people. Prince is playing.
Oh my God!
And he played some of the tastiest, just real.
You got to see
R&B.
Prince.
I got to see Prince, and he was just clowning. He wasn't doing a show. It was like one of his shows after his shows. I think he had played like the Gibson Theater or something like that, and he was in there just chilled out, playing. It was monstrous, man. He was
on and on and on. I saw so many shows that, when I was growing up at the Roxy, that was my hang. Yeah. And then also the Baked Potato. Apparently the Baked Potato was the hang for the LA studio musicians, and that's what I had to think back in my head. I go, how was I able to see all these guys play? And it was like on Sunday, Monday nights. So it was after the work week was done.
Right.
And so I saw, Larry Carlton.
I was just gonna say,
Jeff Beccaro, Willie Weeks, Bob. Just incredible shows. And that's another way I learned. I remember watching Larry Carlton. He's standing right there playing his guitar with a boogie, mesa, straight through the boogie mesa. And I was like, okay, first of all, those notes are not on my guitar, and I don't know where he gets that tone from. So I had a 66 Super Reverb. I sold it to buy a boogie mesa, and I couldn't sell that son of a bitch fast enough. It was horrible. It was like the worst amp I ever had. 35 years later, Big Manny from the Blazers has my amp.
Really?
That's another great story. But anyway, he had bought my amp from the store that I sold it to, and he used it for 35 years. I got it back. That's the amp I use today.
Wow. Well, I still got my Mark II from 1985.
Yeah, but you never got rid of it though.
No, I kept it, and it's a heavy thing, but the Tone Meister it's there. Yeah. Hey, I want to put something to you on an interview. I've just become the vice president of the Jimi Hendrix Foundation.
Really?
Yeah. And so my gig is to do a whole education program, and I know you're a monster instructor. We should definitely talk and see what you're up to. Because I'm looking for instructors but it's exactly the stuff we're talking about. It's not the technique of guitar. It's more of like, this is how it's going to be on the road. This is what the world is like you're going to be in. The stuff they don't teach in school. Because if you ask you or me or any of the players, they go, oh, what should I do? Everybody's going to say, go be yourself. That's what I did. Right. So help people to find who they are and find that path.
That's easier said than done.
It's really easier said than done.
But it's the same thing. Like as a guitar teacher, somebody, occasionally somebody will say, hey Joe, I want to, you give lessons, and I say, well, I do. But I don't, it's not something I really pursue as a career or something. But so when I teach them something, or they come to my house, I say, okay, I'll give you like 2 or 3 hours. We'll hang out. I'll give you what I know recording wise. But we also talk about, composition theory and all the hard stuff. And I give them all this work to do. And I say, okay, work on this scales, work on this chord progression, work on the. Come back when you're ready. They never do. I go because it's too much stuff, But I really believe like a lot of that stuff. If I was lucky when I was a kid to get that teaching, and to this day I practice it.
Or you're with other cats, and you see them working out contracts in the back room, or you're figuring out how to do the cuts and how to take care of the band and all these different things, and so that the show actually goes off, because the whole thing is being professional. Right. It's like our job is to entertain and smile. Your girlfriend left you 10 minutes before the show. Sorry, smile, play. You didn't, your bus broke down, you had to walk the last 2 kilometers. Smile, play. And that's the road. That's our life, man. And and a lot of guys they need to know about it, to just be aware. Yeah, you can't teach it, but you can teach awareness, I think, of some of those things. Well, that's one thing, like
most musicians love playing music, and it's easy for them. Yep. Most musicians don't want to do the work. They don't want to learn the business. They don't want to learn about publishing or copywriting or even let alone writing their own music. And then they don't want to understand. I really believe a lot of the problem with the East LA rock and roll scene is a lot of these artists didn't compose their own music, and the ones that did made it. Cannonball and Headhunters, the Midnighters. They would write their own music. And my brother in the Ambertones wrote music too, and they were they did well, but Vietnam came along, and there you go.
Yeah, but I think a lot of times the cats are playing other people's music because it's easier and more acceptable to get the work.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And I mean, because how it is. I'm playing mostly original music. You guys are playing original music.
Well, that's what I'm most proud of as the Delgado Brothers Band. Whenever we get hired, nobody tells us what to play.
Absolutely.
We play the brothers' music, and that's what you're going to get. Because I don't know anything else.
And speaking of doing your own music, John Mayall
Yeah.
records your song.
Yeah, well, that's another part of my teaching is like, you know, we were lucky enough to have John Mayall record 2 of our songs, and thanks to John Duke Logan, we had a substantial part of the publishing. So with the money that we made from the 2 songs that John recorded, we started our own record company. Wow. And so that's
Well, you have your label
prior to
there.
that with High Tone, which is my wife likes to call the Dark Angel. Like, you know, they teach me, you know, they teach you what not to do again. And so I was on High
School
Tone
of
label,
Hard
yeah, in '87, and we sold 25,000 records as an independent artist. We'd be
Yeah.
living easy, right? But you know, those people were expecting to sell minimum 250,000 records, so we were a disappointment. So just my point of reference is that after 25,000 copies sold, I made $89. And I said, okay, what's wrong with this picture, you know? And then they wonder why record companies aren't around, you know, or everybody's going into their, you know, basement or doing.
And now everything's streaming, and they're
Right.
not even going gold anymore.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Who's being
It's-
certified
it's-
gold or platinum, really?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what
Yeah, it's gonna
technology
change.
brings. Yeah, it's going to change. And things are going to swing the other way hard. I mean, one of the things that was nice about YouTube was that it became about the songs. We know that in the 80s and especially in the 90s, it was like, oh, what console did you record it on, and what mics did you use, and was it this and this? It was all about the technology. And then when YouTube came out, it's some kid on his bed with a phone, and everybody's going, man, that's a great song. Listen to this guy. You know, and it became about the composition, the songwriting again. So I think now it's been about that for a while now, and I think it's going to swing back to where people get the craft of recording again, because it's not just hit the red button.
Sure.
They get the craft of recording now with these good songs, and I think it's going to end up being a lot of cool music coming up. I'm very hopeful and optimistic about that, actually.
Well, that's the other thing, like about our songwriting. And my brother Stevie is our lyricist, and
Who didn't get included in the Mayall liner
yes,
notes.
exactly. Yeah, well, that's a
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Steve. But anyway, but Stevie is like, he's an amazing lyricist, and so we get to tell, you know,
And drummer.
and singer too.
And singer.
Yeah, and he's a good cook. Have you had his chicken taquitos?
No.
Oh, dude, you haven't lived. Anyway, anyway, but that's what I'm most proud of, is like we get to play music that has a message, a positive message about family, friends, and you know, experiences in our life that are real. Like for instance, like we have a song on the new record that's called 450 Mulberry, I Won't Forget. And it's not even in the song. The title's not in the song. But if you look it up, it's where the Lorraine Hotel was Martin Luther King was assassinated, and so that's why I won't forget. And anyways, it's a great song, you know, and it means a lot to me. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Wow, this is to be between 2 great blues guitarists is like not an everyday experience for me.
Good to see you, Joey, man. Awesome.
Tino, Winter NAMM, Music You Can See, Joey and Phil.
Thank you, Casey.
Thanks a lot.